acting is the most important thing.
Mhm.
A lot of people think, they sit in the shower and I can do funny voices, and their friends say, "Oh, you should do cartoons." I say, you're up against people from the Royal Shakespeare Company. You're up against Academy Award-winning actors. You must have that skill set under your belt.
You're listening to the Voiceover Casting Corner, a podcast and question and answer session recorded live every month. VCC is brought to you by the Voicecaster. The Voicecaster casts thousands of voices every year across all genres, and we're excited to give you an inside look at the casting process direct from our casting team.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Voiceover Casting Corner. Today, Catherine and I have a super special guest. We are so excited to start our interview series as well. And today we are getting to sit down and chat with the amazing Marsha Goodman. Catherine is going to tell you a little bit about her.
Yeah, so Marsha is an Emmy Award-winning animation voice and casting director who has worked on over 5,000 episodes. As Senior Vice President, Talent at Deke Entertainment for over 25 years, she cast and directed many iconic and beloved animated characters and worked with countless A-list celebrities and world-famous actors. Her first directing job was with Mel Blanc of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and Elmer Fudd fame as the great character Heathcliff the Cat. The second project was directing Don Adams as Inspector Gadget. Other outstanding projects that she has cast and helmed include the Emmy Award-winning animated series and animated feature-length film The Beloved Madeline, starring Christopher Plummer and Lauren Bacall. War on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, starring Rita Moreno, is another Emmy winner. She has directed the voices on episodes of How to Train Your Dragon for DreamWorks, and she has also cast 2 educational videos for Leapfrog Enterprises. And just a few other projects she has cast and directed are The Real Ghostbusters, Captain Planet, Super Mario Brothers, Where's Waldo, and just many, many, many more. She's recently cast and directed voices on the updated version of Care Bears for American Greetings and Boomerang, and Buddy Thunderstruck for Stupid Buddy Studios, which is now streaming on Netflix. She also teaches our animation intensive workshop here at Voicecaster, and she has taught in New York, San Francisco, as well as in Los Angeles.
Awesome. Marsha has done everything. She's incredible. She is going to share with us so many stories. It's like, I feel like this episode could be 3 hours long. So we're gonna jump right into some questions, chat with Marsha, and have some fun. I think we're going to hear some fun stories today and hear about some fun people that she's worked with and just get some of her stories and her words of wisdom. I think she has so much to share with us, and I'm excited that we get to share it all with you.
Okay.
So, Marsha, how did you get started in the voiceover industry?
I went to UCLA and got my master's degree in cinema, and I directed documentaries. I love documentaries. I made a great documentary that aired on the public broadcasting system about the history of Chavez Ravine and Dodger Stadium and community organizing in Los Angeles. And I thought I would be making documentaries my whole life. But in those days, there was no such thing as video. And all documentaries had to be shot on film, which was very, very expensive. And there were no real outlets for documentaries. There weren't all these cable channels and things like that. So I was working as a talent agent for a while, and then a friend of the family told me to go on an interview for an animation company. So I walked into the company. I saw the sign DIC, Los Angeles, Tokyo, Paris. I said, I want to work for a company that's named after a penis that has offices in all these places. Maybe I get to go. And Andy Hayward was the president, and he interviewed me. But he said, before I interview you, I need you to take me to pick up my my Porsche, because it's at the repair shop. I had to drive him to pick up his Porsche. He goes, I want to take you out to lunch, but I don't have any money. Can I borrow $10? And he took me to McDonald's with my money. And then he hired me.
What a job interview.
And there were 4 people working at Deke in the days of animation. You know, they had 2 shows. They had Inspector Gadget and The Littles, which was all the animation was done in Tokyo, in Japan. The way it was done was they'd record the voices. They did those in Canada, and then they'd send the tracks to Japan after going through them and marking things. And then the animation would all be done by hand. There was no computers. And when after we recorded, sometimes we were in such a rush, people would have to hand carry the tracks to Japan. They take a flight to Japan, drop them off, and come back. And then we got a telex machine so we could communicate. That was very exciting. That was before fax machines. And then when we finally got a fax machine, we could fax the materials, but we still had to hand carry the audio tracks, that were recorded on half-inch. So that was an exciting time.
That's crazy.
That's amazing.
There are only two.
So amazing.
There are only two outlets for animation. There was network, and then there was syndicated. There were no cable channels in those days. And he was at one of the first companies that had a show that was both aired on the network and the syndication. It was revolutionary at the time.
It's amazing.
In those days, we record 65 episodes at a time
Wow.
for syndication.
That's incredible. Whoa. What's one of your favorite projects, or a couple of your favorite projects? I know it can be hard to choose one, that you've been able to work on.
There were so many. Well, the first one when I directed Mel Blanc, that was really exciting because he was so gifted for Heathcliff. And the real Ghostbusters was so much fun. There was just all stand-up comics as the voices, Maurice LaMarche and Arsenio Hall and Dave Coulier. So that, and Frank Welker, of course, the man of the most wonderful person. So that I gave all those people their first jobs in animation. That was fun. And Ivan Reitman would sometimes come to the recording sessions. So that was very exciting. And Madeline, of course, is my girl. I wish she won my Emmy for me. And I'm so proud of that show because she's such a feisty girl. There was none of that like feminine stuff. She kicked butt, she scared tigers, and she was there. All the little girls were so supportive of each other. There was no backbiting or anything like that. It was a real wonderful show. I was really proud of that. And of course, Captain Planet was the first environmentally conscious cartoon. And we had all kinds of celebrities that were involved with that. The first time they published that in the trades, they were looking for a person to play Captain Planet. And I was out on maternity leave. My second in command, Madeline, got a call, and the person said, "Hi, this is Tom Cruise. I'm interested in doing the voice of Captain Planet." And she hung up on him. She said, "This is a joke." And he called back, "No, this is really Tom Cruise." So we started out with him. Was involved with Ted Turner and all those people. But he couldn't really, there were 65 episodes of that too, and he couldn't really keep up with the schedule because he had such a busy schedule. So he ended up recasting that. But that was fun working with him for a few hours.
Yeah.
And my other favorite was Liberty's Kids, which was also a celebrity, but that was about the history of the American Revolution. And there was a lot of really good writing in that, revelatory stories that you didn't know about the history of the American Revolution. So that was a good one too.
Very cool. So many great projects. It's like I wanna just pick your brain on all of them and be a fly on the wall with some of these recording sessions. So along those,
all the things that we ever did. Okay.
yeah, that's just, it's amazing. Like it just boggles my mind. I know you have worked with so many celebrities, some huge names. Do you want to share any stories about any of them? Anything, funny, crazy, just amazing that has happened? Any of your favorites?
Was there anybody you were starstruck by?
Oh, Elizabeth Taylor, Lauren Bacall, a few rock and roll guys, one of the Grateful Dead, Weird, and Sting. But the most fun was Whoopi Goldberg. When we do a recording session, my stomach would hurt from laughing so hard. I just loved working with her. She was a really hard worker too. She never phoned anything in. She'd record the whole thing and then say, "Let me do it one more time for me." She was good. And Ed Asner was really fun too. There were so many.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at your list and I'm like, Dustin Hoffman and John Candy and Macaulay Culkin, Tim Curry, Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan, Susan Sarandon. Like, Neil Patrick Harris, Samuel L. Jackson, James Earl Jones, Christopher Walken. Like, I mean, I'm just picking random names off of this incredible list. And it's just amazing, that you've gotten to collaborate with so many amazing people.
I was so lucky. Tim Curry was a wonderful person. Then when we were doing Liberty's Kids, Walter Cronkite played Ben Franklin. So he's one of my heroes. That was really fun. Liam
That's
Neeson was a
amazing.
wonderful guy. So many great. Christopher Plummer. I'll tell you a funny story about Christopher Plummer. We were doing Madeline. He was the narrator in an old house in Paris. It's covered with vines. And we were doing one episode, and there was a horse named Bon Bon. It had a hat with a little ear sticking out. And I had told the animation director, I said, Christopher's going to want to say bonbon because he speaks French. And the director says, no, it's got to match for the rhyme. So he should call him Bon Bon. And so I wasn't directing that show. I was having Deborah direct it because he was in New York and I was kind of sick of traveling. And so she calls me up at 7:00 in the morning. She says, Christopher wants to talk to you. I said, okay. He said, why in the world would you have me say Bon Bon? It's painful to the ears. You should pay me hazard pay. Actors are so dramatic. And he says, I speak French. I speak French. And I said, yeah, but the rhyme. And he goes, well, it's insulting to me. And I said, well, Christopher, do whatever you want. I'm going to go back to sleep. He was right. I knew he would want to do it correctly. But
Yeah.
that was funny.
So did it end up as Bon Bon
No,
to match the rhyme?
Bonbon. Christopher had his way. He was the EGOT person, I think. So, he won an Emmy for that show for Madeline, and he won an Academy Award, and
Wow.
he was so talented.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the other, we did a cartoon about Martin Luther King that was really lovely, and I worked with his son and daughter.
Oh, wow.
That was exciting and
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing how something, it's like a lot of people think about cartoons and they're like, oh, it's cartoons, something your kids watch, and it's like, and a lot of adults, of course, watch cartoons as well. But, it's incredible to like hear so much of what goes into it, but then also like so many of these shows also you're learning from them. You're learning about keeping the earth clean. You're learning about, things in history. It's like, yeah, there's just so much more to a cartoon than just being entertainment for kids, and it's so incredible.
I know. I meet people in their 30s and 40s and say, Captain Planet, he said, that encouraged me to recycle. You say, you changed my life. It made me conscious of the dangerous things of the world just by this silly cartoon, Captain Planet.
Right?
That was something to be really proud of.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, it's so often like people are like, oh, we do voiceover. We're not like, we're not doctors. We're not changing the world. We're not rocket scientists. But there's so much that can be done through art. And I just think that's so incredible. It's like all of our jobs are so important, just for the messages and lessons and things that we can get out there. So, yeah. And you've done so many that have been so educational. It's like a lot of the shows that you've done have just made such an impact on people, which is amazing. Not necessarily something that you'll always think about when you think about cartoons and animation. So
it's true. It's like Carmen Sandiego was made for PBS.
Mhm.
It talked about geography,
Mhm.
and historical landmarks and things.
Yeah,
My boss Bernie used to always say, "Oh, we're not curing cancer. We're just making cartoons." But we're doing a lot of things and teaching a lot of lessons, and you have to be really. When my husband's favorite story is that when Mel Blanc, we were doing Heathcliff, and after every episode, they'd have what they call a pet tag. How to treat your pet and make sure they get water and make sure you walk them and things like that. And one of the pet tags had a rabbit in it. I said, it was just like a 30-second PSA, public service announcement. So I said to Mel, could you just do this rabbit before we go for the pet tag? And he goes, I only do one rabbit. Oh my God, that was so cool. You never said no to me before, but I was right about that.
He only needed to do that one rabbit. I love that. So what is some advice that you would give actors who are just starting out?
But it's the same thing that I tell my class in Voicecaster. Acting is the most important thing. I mean, a lot of people think, they sit in the shower and I can do funny voices, and their friends say, "Oh, you should do cartoons." But I say you're up against people from the Royal Shakespeare Company. You're up against Academy Award-winning actors. You must have that skill set under your belt. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yep. I mean, Catherine and I are always saying that too. It's not about the voice. It's about what you do with it.
It's voice acting.
Yeah, it is the acting side. It's like we get so many phone calls that are like, "Oh, I have a great voice. Everybody says I should do voiceover." And our first question is, "Do you have any acting experience?" If not, that's
Let's
where you
start
need to start.
Mhm. Yeah. So, as someone who's been in the industry for a while, have you noticed any trends in animation? Anything from back when you started that's not currently happening, or how has the industry changed?
Oh, it's changed so much. As I say, before everything was done on film. There were two outlets, network and syndication. There was no internet. There was no streaming. Everything had to go through standards and practices. You had to be really careful. There was no adult swim,
Right.
things like that. And yeah, and everything was union,
Right.
and actors were well paid.
Yeah. So, are there things that you miss that aren't around now, or are there changes that you're glad to see?
Things that I miss.
The union jobs.
It's getting actors paid. There's so many outlets and so many non-union things. Of course, I hate to say this, but they were looking for ways to cut back very early. The first Inspector Gadget, half of it was done in Canada, and we had an office in Canada. We recorded some shows in Canada. It was a lot cheaper, and you could do a buyout for residuals, but it was still union. And then Andy met Warren Buffett in Omaha, and he said, "Oh, we should do recording shows in Omaha." And of course, they had a wonderful theater scene there because there's a lot of money in Omaha, but it was non-union. I gave the first job to a young man named Andrew Reynolds, who is now a Broadway star. He was one of the Mormons in Book of Mormon. He's done wonderful shows on Broadway, but his first on-screen credit was on a cartoon, the Street Sharks, that we did in Omaha. He was 16 years old, and now he's 40, and he's a Broadway star.
It's incredible. You've given lots of people their first jobs. It's so amazing.
It's true. Maurice LaMarche, Arsenio Hall. He had his first cartoon.
What do you think one of your biggest successes have been? And what was maybe one of your biggest failures, or something that you thought was going to be huge and didn't do as well as you thought?
After Ghostbusters, they did a movie called Evolution, and we started right before the movie was released. We started recording a cartoon of it. I think it was like 65 episodes, and then I think the movie tanked, and I think the cartoon never aired. We did a lot of recording with that. That was sad because it was fun. It was really well written and had great sense of humor, but that was kind of sad. Getting an Emmy for Madeline was a wonderful reinforcement of my work, but also just meeting people saying, you affected my childhood. You were my childhood with all the cartoons that you made. Something to be proud of. And then, of course, there are all the commercials. They had to have the SCC chairman lady and talking about how you can't have them run together and children to eat cereal. Adult things or buy toys.
Right.
So they, oversaw that. So there were a lot of rules that came about because of what we did.
It's a great legacy. I mean, that is something where it's like, we tell people check out Marsha's IMDB page, when they're talking about the animation intensive that we have with you. And it's like some people are just like, wow, like these are some of my favorite shows, or like, yes, this was my childhood. It's like it's an incredible list, like it's just mind-boggling all the things that you've done in your career. It's incredible.
It's mind-boggling to me, and it goes back to early 80s. And
Yeah.
so now the kids that have watched my stuff are kind of aging out. They're in their 30s and 40s, and the new little ones, I don't know how many shows. The old, of course, Care Bears. I did my first episode in 1985, and then I did the most recent one in 2020. So
Mhm.
the thing about animation and cartoons is you have a new audience every 10 years, so this stuff can air over and over again.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's always interesting, having two little ones myself. It's like, we'll revisit cartoons that we watched as kids, and it's so different than what there is now. It's amazing how different they can be, and it's so fun to go back to all of that.
It's true, and the whole process is so much different. It's all computerized
Right.
now, and they still record the voice first, but there's the claymation and the stop motion and the, all the work was done in Japan, and the cells were hand painted, and it would take forever to get the stuff back. Now they can turn it around in 2 months.
All on the computer.
Yeah, I mean, way easier to edit nowadays, right? We've been working on renovations here at the studio, and it's been interesting the things that we're finding, and like a box of razor blades. Some people would be like, "What is this doing here?" And it's like, yeah, that's how they used to cut tape. It's like you don't have to do that anymore. You do it all right there on your computer. You're so lucky. Yes.
Well, when Inspector Gadget, the first episodes came back from Japan, and they were, on film, and we'd have a moviola, and we'd have to have the sound, audio, and the matching up and syncing, and this big, huge, bulky machine. I thought, oh, I have a master's degree in film. I can do it. No, we had to get a professional to put it together.
Oh,
And you have to be careful. You couldn't scratch it, and if you screwed it up, you're in trouble because you have to tape it back together.
Yeah.
So we know the industry has changed in terms of, how things are done, the hand-painted animation versus computer. Have you noticed any changes in like the actors and how the acting for animation? Is it still kind of that big cartoony over the top stuff? Is it more grounded?
It's not as over the top as it used to be. Some cartoons are. There's all these different styles now. Some are very subdued, but the thing is that you still have to keep the pacing up. Even when they're low key, you still have to talk faster than you normally would in a normal conversation, because the animation is still expensive to do, and you don't want to have any dead air like in a radio show. You still have to keep it moving and keep the pace up. And people that think they're acting fast enough, we have to constantly say, no, faster, a little bigger, crank it up a tad.
It's always easier to tell people to slow down than it is to get them to speed up.
Absolutely. And people,
We always say that with going bigger too. It's easier to rein people in than it is to keep pushing them forward for more energy. And
we were the original using celebrities, they thought it was so important. I never thought it was that important. And honestly, some of the actors didn't get it. Frank Welker was the quintessential voice actor for animation, and he just got it. And Mel Blanc and Maurice, they understood how to act for animation. And theater actors were better than film actors. Film actors use their face and their expressions and their subtlety. Can't really be subtle. I tell my class, sledgehammer, no subtlety allowed. Because people are gonna miss it. The other thing is, cartoons are on multi levels. We have the kids level, and then we have the adults level, so that the kids can watch along. Humor. So
Yep. So getting that subtlety.
yeah, I always notice that as I'm watching things. I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing there. I don't get it, but I get it.
Tara Strong, I gave her first cartoon when she was 10 years old. She was a little girl in Canada, and she was a background actor, and her voice was so strong. We ended up casting her as the lead and putting the other little girl in the background. She was just a natural talent, as a 10-year-old, and she could sing like an angel. So I've known her for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And she's had quite the career. Yeah. So, yeah, all started right there. Do you want to share with us a little bit about the animation intensive?
Sure.
3-hour, one-day intensive that you do through
What can actors
Voicecaster?
expect if they want to take the class?
Yeah.
I love that class. It's so much fun, and I think the people enjoy it too. What we do is I have everybody fill out a form telling me their abilities and the accents they do. I mean, the thing about acting for animation that's different than on-screen acting is that you need to do multiple voices. The SAG contract says that they get 2 voices for the price of one, and a third additional voice for another 10%. I think is it 10%? And so they have to be able to do multiple voices, and they have to do different characters and different accents and different ages. If they really want to be successful in animation, unless they have the most unique voice in the world, then they can maybe get away with it. So, and they have to be a wonderful actor. So I have them fill out the form, and then I give everybody 5 audition sides based on what the form that they filled out with, the accents that they can do, British, German, Australian, French, Spanish. And they get 5 different characters, different ages. I send that to them the week before the class so they can look at it. And then they come in and we give them a little talk about acting for animation and how it should be big, and give them an example and have them read some copy and talk about how if you have 3 items in a row that you should build up, like, I don't know, I wash my face and wash my hair and get dressed. You have to make that can all sound the same. You have to make it exciting, and you have to either build on it or do something interesting with each voice and break down the copy. And because the characters have no expression on their faces, it all comes from what you give them. So it has to be have personality. We each take turns doing some of the audition sides, and I give them notes on how they should change it, and they do it again. Then if we have time, we take some copies, some cartoons. We have some dirty ones that we do, and some ones that I've directed in the past. Maybe some
Captain Planet.
Planet we've done, and everybody has to do a different accent with that. Or we do something from Adult Swim, Hot Streets, which is really dirty. And people have fun. We read that copy cold. I assign people based on their abilities. I assign them different characters, and we do a couple of shows. And then if we have time left, we finish the audition sides, and they really get a workout. They end up sweating after.
Yeah, that's a lot packed into 3 hours.
That's so much for 3 hours. Yeah.
I think everybody has a good time. I sure enjoy it. I love listening to new people and hearing we've had some brilliantly talented people. And some people don't know
It's a
anything
great
else.
chance for actors to get feedback from an actual casting director. And it's a great chance for actors to read together, like you said, the animation scripts. You don't always get to do that. So it's a great opportunity for them to practice working in a group setting too.
Right, and seeing how the pacing is different. Now on my most constant note is faster, louder, bigger.
If you could tell anybody listening to this right now one thing, what should they need to know if they want to get into animation, or if they're interested in jumping into voiceover? What's one piece of advice you would give them?
My advice is still the same. You have to be able to act.
Mm-hmm.
Before you come into a voice class, you need to take an acting class, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to spend a fortune. You can go to City College or anywhere that there are a lot of acting classes and studios worked out. When I first started working in animation, directing, I didn't have any acting experience. So I took an acting class by Ivana Chubik. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's pretty famous. Originally she was Roy London's assistant, who worked with Gary Shandling. He was thanked on his credits. And I took the class with him, and then I took the class with her. And I really learned how to communicate with actors. The worst insult is giving somebody a line reading. If they're a good actor, they should know. You just tell them, emphasize this word or emphasize that word or focus on that or smooth it out or something. But don't
Mhm.
give them a line reading. Everybody thinks it's so easy to direct cartoons, and everybody thinks they can do it.
Yeah.
But actors are very sensitive, and you really have to be careful, not to insult them and to encourage them. Cartoons used to be half an hour long, like
Yeah.
syndicated
Yeah.
ones were longer than the network because of the commercials. Now they have 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and it's all so arbitrary,
Mhm. Yeah.
and the
So
way
true.
that actors are paid is so much different. They paid by the hour.
Mhm.
It's just a Wild West situation now.
Yeah.
It is, and every project they're all so different, it's like there's no rules. There's no rules anymore. It's like there's animated stuff that you'll find on YouTube, and it's like could be anywhere. Well, thank you so much, Marsha, for chatting with us today and being our first guest on Voiceover Casting Corner. We're so excited to have you.
It's an honor. I love you
Thank
guys, and I love working with Voicecaster.
Yeah, we love
We
having
love
you on our
too.
team.
Yes, yes. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Catch our next Voiceover Casting Corner episode live on Facebook and YouTube. Check our socials or follow us for the latest info. Thanks for listening.